Welcome everyone that just came on. This is Joseph from Adjuvant Protocols for Healing. And I wish you a very healthy, good day today. As you have just heard, this is an Apple podcast that was played this week on some of the findings related to aging, reversing aging, and what they think they have found in the blood. What they think is something that is in the blood, an essence, a molecule. But I would say to you, based on Dr. Lee's research and others, that has been lost until teachers like Dr. Gada, Mark Anderson, and others teach. It's not so much something to be found in the blood, it is what is not in the blood. So I'm going to explain myself. And this relates, of course, to our topic today, which is enjoying optimal health in andropause and menopause. Here is Dr. Lee's quote. Old age in general is probably the development of these antibodies, one after the other, to one specialized tissue after the other, after another. What I have been teaching you over these years now is when necrotic proteins, dead protein cells, leak into the blood, it becomes what's known as an antigen. The human body then creates antibodies to get rid of that protein. The body cannot make new tissue out of proteins. That's why we're allergic. The only thing we're allergic to is proteins. And so the body forms antibodies to attack these necrotic proteins, i.e. antigens. When that is cleaned up, because the blood is sacred, the blood must sustain itself. Then it goes and attacks that wherever that protein came from, whether it's the intestinal tract, the brain, the lungs, the heart. Dr. Lee hypothesized, which I feel is right on, and it has been my experience over these 50 years that he was right on, is that if you could prevent these antigens, this antigenic cycle, this antigenic antibody cycle, then the body could live on and on very well. It's not that the body won't age. It is that the body will age well. You won't have all of these, what's called now comorbidities, the breakdown of your eyes, your brain. So that's what they were finding, in my opinion, without, unbeknownst to them. They weren't, and they will never find this essence in the blood because it's not there. What they did discover was what Dr. Lee said, that the fact that if you can prevent the human body from attacking these specialized tissues, all of these organs, glands, and tissues, then the body will sustain health and vitality. This is why Dr. Lee's gift to the world was the protomorphogen, the PMG. Anything that is in a formulation or anything as a single product from standard process that has PMG after it prevents the breakdown of the organs, glands, and tissues in the body. And so this is the basis of what I want to teach you today related to aging, andropause, menopause, and the key nutrients that are going to relate to this. So I hope that's clear. Now, there is one other thing that happens as we age that Dr. Harrower taught back in the 1920s that I want to review briefly with you, which is all part of this. Because these organs, glands, and tissues, and especially the endocrine system, which is the messaging system throughout the whole body, as they begin to come under assault from these antibodies, the inability for the body to recover and repair and maintain is lost. And so the body overcompensates. It overcompensates. And this was Dr. Harrower's added onto hypothesis. Now, it wasn't just him. This was doctors from all over the world. In his book, Endocrine Handbook. And so, and I want to read you just a little bit, which I've underlined here. And he relates this, which we're going to talk about today in andropause, the prostate. Now, remember, when I talk about the prostate, I'm talking about in the female, the parallel organ, which is the uterus. That, let's see, the physiology underlying the following suggestions include 2 points that are not yet generally accepted as facts. Well, it is fact that the prostate is a gland of internal secretion, and that there is such an intimate functional relationship between the prostate and the testes that waning gonad activity, this is very important to get this, waning gonad activity, think of the female too, waning ovarian activity, arouses a compensatory cooperative activity of the prostate. So in other words, it is telling the prostate, I can't function anymore. My testes don't function like they used to. So you need to get large. You need to take over. This is the reason that men in andropause have so much difficulty with their prostate and other things too, which we'll get to in a second. So here is just to finish this part. Fundamentally, now this, what I was just, well, I'll read all of this. We must remember that because of the definite relationship between the testes and the prostate, it is probable that the prostate often hypertrophies after removal of the testes, evidently as a temporary compensatory reaction to make up for the lacking gonadal internal secretions. Why do the gonads lose their secretion? Why do the ovaries lose their secretions? Because they're being attacked, everyone. Why does the heart lose its function? Because it's being attacked. That it, in fact, has become an autoimmune cycle within that person's body. Fundamentally, this is the same as thyroid enlargement during a period of ovarian insufficiency. There's a pearl, everyone. There's a pearl. Or pituitary hypertrophy as an attempt to meet a lack that it cannot supply. The fact that prostatic hypertrophy quite commonly follows the functional retirement of the testes has caused many observers to believe that there is some relationship between the endocrine activity of both these organs. It is believed that when the testes become functionally inactive, the prostate becomes enlarged. There, everyone is trying to figure this out. There it is. And it's so simple. In a compensatory fashion, just as other ductless glands enlarge when closely related to glands are put out of commission. The body is magnificent. And it has backup mechanisms to make up for deficiency. But if the body is truly nourished, and our beloved friend Tom Cameron used to teach for us, the veterinary line, his quote was, "Age is not a disease." It isn't. It's the end result of malnutrition. Not enough vitamins, not enough mineral, and like protein, the protomorphogen for that particular organ, gland, and tissue. So I don't want to go on with this, but I want to finish with this. The writer also expresses the opinion that has been hinted at elsewhere, namely that the uterus and the prostate are analogous organs, which I said to you, and that early cessation of sexual activity is liable to cause enlargement of the prostate and issues in the uterus, by the way, in the vaginal tract, just to take this one area, which is huge in andropause and menopause. Wait till we get to that. It is interesting to note that Galupa considers uterine fibroids to be the most common in nullipari. Now, nullipari means in women that have never given birth. The cessation, the decline of their ovarian function stimulates the body to make the uterus larger, i.e. uterine fibroids. And since we are to consider the prostate as the male uterus, its disease should appear more often in inactive glands. And he talks about this. People, and he goes on to say, individuals all over the world lose their ability of intimacy. Now, why? Well, we're going to look at that. And mainly the preventative way we can work with ourselves, our family, our wonderful clients that we work with, is to enhance endocrine function. Why do I say that as a primary? Because without endocrine function, there is no hormonal function or diminished hormonal function. You cannot arise, you cannot wake up the body and set it in motion to do anything of a healing nature. And if it's not, if the body is not arising to the occasions of aging and setting in motion, it is falling apart, it is collapsing. Those necrotic cells, as I said, those proteins are leaking into the bloodstream. Then the immune system is attacking them, creating antibodies, and then going to the host organ. And as Lee said, what did he say? Old age in general is probably the development of these antibodies. Probably. He was being very humble. He knew. One after the other, to one specialized tissue after another. So I'm going to let you listen to, which I don't usually do, but I'm going to try it today. Dr. Lee himself talking about this. Now, in this a short part of his lecture, he's talking about cataracts, everyone. Same principle of what I've just outlined.
Old age, in general, is probably the development of these antibodies, one after the other, to one specialized tissue after another. I believe that some of these days we're going to know how to use antibody or antigens in the cataract. We have seen plenty of cataracts improve and disappear on altering the patient's nutritional pattern. If you correct the patient's deficiencies, that's the first thing to do, and I'd say maybe 40–50% of these patients their eyes will clear up. I've seen congenital cataracts. I recall one youngster in Minneapolis. He was so blind he couldn't attend public school, and it's quite a pitiful case. His mother was a widow living on a pension, and a policeman called our attention to this youngster. He had lived up in the state. The policeman paid his fare to come in to visit the leading eye clinic in Minneapolis, and they wanted to know if we would donate vitamins to see what could be done with this youngster. Well, as a result of putting him on a proper vitamin pattern and better food, his cataracts disappeared. He went on through school, and the last I heard of him, he had a job as a salesman for an automotive supply house, traveling in the Northwest. I'd like to know, that was 10 years ago. I don't know whether his cataracts ever came back. But at any rate, if it did, he had a wherewithal then to get his eyes operated on, and it wouldn't be any serious incurment. But a youngster with cataracts is a pitiful thing. But we have seen so many clear up in patients who have been being treated for other things, in which the cataracts cleared up while they were being treated. That's a very common thing. Some of our cancer remedies, you've probably heard of this cribiazin story in Chicago. Some of the patients that are given cribiazin shots for cancer, the cancer disappeared and the cataracts too. But at this moment, all I can say is that cataracts often disappear when the patient is put on a better nutritional pattern. But there's nothing specific about it anymore than to say that a lot of them have their gray hair disappear when they're put on a good nutritional pattern. We had some interesting experience recently. One of our leading radio commentators bought some vitamin F, and his hair went back to normal color, so he gave us a free boost over the radio. And we were busy writing letters to people telling them not to expect too much because it doesn't work with everybody. But I'd say only about 20% of the people that take vitamins for gray hair get satisfactory results. And I think that cataract may be just as bad, maybe just as low as far as nutrition alone. But these patients who have cataracts usually have plenty of other things to treat, and they're all a pattern of the same thing. But again, keep in mind that it's just like gray hair. It's due to an excess antibody. And sometime we probably learn how to control that perfectly. The eye lens protein is one of the most specific, the most peculiar, let us say, in the body, and that's why it's one of the first to become attacked if antibodies start to develop.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? There, you don't even have to listen to the rest of my lecture. You've gotten some pearls, but this principle is throughout. It's throughout every part of the human body. The same principle. Now, in my cataract protocol, in my book, the #1 product is oculotrophin. That's what they use. That's what he was referring to, and the other parts as well. You cannot just relieve the burden on that organ, gland, or tissue. You must be able to feed that organ, gland, and tissue so it can restore itself to whatever degree possible and maintain that restoration. And that starts with your brain. What did that woman say in the Apple podcast? What did she say? One of the big challenges and one of the wonderful things they found was when the brain goes, you cannot restore it. It's very difficult reversing bad brain function. Yet it happened when they used the blood of young mice and removed the antigens, stopped the attack, the brain began to restore itself. So it is important that as we get into andropause, get into menopause, that we don't wait until something goes wrong with our memories and our brains. We have to do something for them now. A lot of the side effects with these andropause and menopause, it relates to the brain and the eyes, as he said, sleep issues, emotional issues, mental issues. And that's why I put in here, this is from one of my other lectures, and you can review this yourself, the importance of feeding the pineal gland and of using pineal substance, protomorphogen, to prevent the breakdown, of getting off of filtered water. And these two water systems are the ones that remove not just chlorine, but fluorine. So just a side note. And the other is to use my brain blend, to use specific herbs. Now, you say, well, Joe, I can't take everything. I know, but today I'm going to review with you as you turn to 60 to 90. These need to be emphasized. These herbs, these supplements, these protomorphogens that I'll go through today need to be the emphasis. So get off some of the other things you're on, some of the other things you've read. You can't take everything, or break it up. Take some of these things Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and other things that you want Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Within a 48-hour period, you're fine. And here are the three key herbs. Gotu-kola. Why? Gotu-kola relates to the pineal gland, which relates to monitoring the hypothalamus, of regulating the inner and outer world, bridging the nervous system, the endocrine system. So you can put this together yourself as you go back through these notes. We looked at Parkinson's, this issue with Parkinson's. They tied it back to pineal function. Yes, because these two work together. These three work together in the brain. You know, when they say, well, when the brain goes, well, what do you mean the brain? You know, when the fat goes, you know, the brain is 60 to 70% fat. No, these specific endocrine glands, when they begin to go, that's when this cycle of going down the aging rabbit hole begins. Hypothalamus, St. John's wort, here it is. And oxytocin, which is your ginseng or eleuthero, if you can't afford the ginseng. So these are the ones that you can make a blend of. Now, in my book, which I'm not going to go into, I just wanted to show you this page, are all the blends that I have used over the years. And the brain blend in particular, ginkgo, gotu-kola, and bacopa as well. Now, if you wanted to make a blend of these three, you could. Gotu-kola, St. John's wort, and ginseng, you could as well. So you can look at these and see which ones you want to make. They're very easy to make up, very easy to take. Now, hold on 1 second. This is just loading, I think. So it's very important that not only are herbs used, but other protomorphogens, vitamins, minerals, and the protomorphogens are used. So let's go deeper into, I don't remember what was on here, but that's okay. We'll just move on here. So this is an article that I'm not going to go into, but it goes into the difference between menopause and andropause. It's a great article. I always like to give you these when I'm teaching. But the takeaway today is they studied 106 postmenopausal women found that all of them experience some of the symptoms mentioned above: emotional problems, headaches, lethargy were the most commonly occurring symptoms in that order. Now, I'm going to review with you today the Menopause Protocol and the primary products for that. Female libido issues, low libido in females, vaginal dryness, and weight gain. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each of these, but you'll see that there is a commonality with all of them. So in menopause, obviously, hot flashes is huge. Depression, anxiety, loss of, if you just took these top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is what I did. Insomnia is in there. Weight gain is in there. You know, sore breasts, dry skin, mood swings, lethargy, all of that. These are the primary. So how do we work with this? Oh, this is the protocol for menopause. Why isn't that coming up?
I don't know, but that is what was there, Joseph. I was just texting you. Yeah.
Okay. So this is what I'll do, because I want to review this with them, is I can go to the earlier one and see if it's in there. No problem. I always save. Oh,
there it is.
Okay, good. Okay, then we'll go back to the other. So the menopause program is basically, and I'm going to break these products down for you. Simplex F, obviously Andropause would be Simplex M, or Ovarian PMG, which is in Simplex F, Wild EM Complex, Minchex, and Adrenal Complex. But I'm going to just focus on these two today. Now, remember, I couldn't put everything in the top ones, in the primary ones. But remember, be aware, if a woman is going through menopause, they have dry skin, this is your key product. If they need a multivitamin, this is your key product. If they begin to have heart issues, this is your key product. If gastrointestinal, leaky gut, this is your key product. Obviously, if they sore muscles, soreness, lethargy, lack of energy, this is your key product. And B6 niacinamide. Now, everything that I put in a protocol, I have used for that condition. So, like a protocol, if I used Minchex and Adrenal Complex, or I didn't feel the person needed it, I would always use Simplex F and Wild EM Complex, always. What I would do is I would take these out and maybe I would put them on B6. And you're going to see at the end of my lecture why this is in here. I don't just throw products at these protocols. These protocols are all products contained within that I have had successful results with. So let me go back to this one now. And now it's probably popped up, but that's okay. Oh, it didn't. Oh, there it is. Okay, it did pop up. There we go. So let's look at hot flashes for a minute. So if you're going to use Simplex F and Simplex F and Wild EM Complex, then you definitely would, if with hot flashes, you would want to understand why. And here is the reason why. Now it's written here, but it is bigger so we can read it easier. At the time of menopause, there is usually a loss of ovarian hormone. Here we have it, everyone. If those mice in that study were female, And the older mouse was losing hormonal function, a loss of ovarian function, and got the blood from the younger one, what would be happening? The antigens in the blood would disappear because the younger mouse does not have the antigens. So you can see how this principle is so sound and so true. When you lose ovarian hormone, why is that so significant? Because it inhibits the sympathetic nervous system. Unless the sympathetic nervous system has the balancer, which, by the way, is the pituitary, unless it has that, it's going to drive the nervous system of that individual into hyperspace. It's going to drive it into a type A nervous system, i.e. hot flashes. When do women get hot flashes? If they have a cup of coffee, if they almost have an accident, if they eat too much sugar, carbohydrates, bad food, if they're under a lot of stress, if they're not getting enough sleep, there it is, because it doesn't have the balance between the pituitary and that ovarian function. Without this inhibitor, because just to finish this thought, and you're probably asking why, well, what does the pituitary have to do with it? The pituitary is the regulator of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, which you'll see in a minute. Without this inhibitor, rise is given to sympathetic atonia. With the splenic blood, here is what's happening in the hot flash. The blood, splenic blood, is the blood within the body cavity itself, which is supposed to stay in the body, not go to the outside. When that body moves to the outside, because you're in sympathetic dominance, i.e. the tiger is chasing you. When the tiger is chasing you, your blood is moving to the outside of your body, going towards the periphery and causing the typical hot flash, accompanied by disturbances in calcium metabolism. Oh, what did Joe put in here as a product that I've used in menopause? Calcium lactate. That's why I say everything that I put in these protocols. And you could pick, by the way, you could pick 2 from here and 2 or 3 from here, and that would be their program. Because if you picked Imuplex, lactic acid yeast, and calcium as an example, there's a maintenance protocol right there. So there's high significance to these. And I have not just thrown these protocols together. I'm not saying any of you are thinking that, but they are very specific. That's why I like to explain them. So here is why I like Simplex F so much. Straight pituitrophin, pituitrophin. This is a combination product, as most of you well know, because here you have the pituitrophin and the overtrophin all in one product. Dr. Lee's understanding, his brilliance. And that's why I say a lot of these combined formulas, unless somebody explains it to you, you don't have any idea why it's so significant. Why this is so significant to menopause. Well, here it is. The balancer of the autonomic nervous system. Key in that triad of pineal, hypothalamus, and pituitary. Because the pituitary also regulates, works in cooperation with digestion. What happens in menopause? Woman gets constipated. What happens in menopause? Thyroid issues. What happens in menopause? The hips go, the ligaments, the hips go. So, and this article, which I put in here because related to, again, to the pituitary. The pituitary, and I don't even have to read this whole thing to you. Just listen to this first statement. The pituitary body governs oxygenation. You live in Colorado. You get what's going on right now in this country, and it has been going on. What is the key thing everyone needs? Oxygenation. If you don't have good pituitary function, you can take all the oxygen you want. You'll have to just stay on it. You need to get back to the cause of what governs oxygenation. The pituitary governs oxygenation. So I'm not even going to read the rest of this. That's for you and your homework to do. So here are the other things that all relate to menopause. Almost all of these in some way. Women tend to get tachycardia. Just to go through these: hot flashes, decreased estrogen. All of these relate to pituitary function. The other thing that gets lost, we've looked at Dr. Lee's on cataracts in the eyes. What about the heart? Now, I've read this to you before, but I'm going to read it again, because this little paragraph ties in with the relationship between the heart and the pituitary, which ties in with everything else. Another component of the heart brain, we could put heart pituitary communication system. When they say brain, it's too vague for me. What do you mean brain? Give me, throw me a bone here. I need to get specific. Heart pituitary communication system was provided by researchers studying the hormonal system. Yes. Other parts of the brain itself doesn't have anything to do with the hormone. It's the pituitary and hypothalamus, pineal. The heart was reclassified as an endocrine gland when in 1983, a hormone produced and released by the heart called atrial natriuretic factor, ANH, was isolated. So what does this do? If you strengthen the pituitary and the relationship between the heart and the pituitary, and in my menopausal protocol is Cardio Plus. That's the one I chose. This hormone exerts its effects on blood vessels, hypertension, all kinds of blocking of blood vessels, the loss of integrity. Wow. Do you want something that affects it? Here it is, the relationship between the pituitary and the heart. On the kidneys, the adrenal glands, and on a large number of regulatory regions in the brain. I would like to say, i.e., pineal, hypothalamus, pituitary. It was also found that the heart contains a cell type known as intrinsic cardiac adrenogenetic cells, ICA. These cells release noradrenaline. Oh, so now you're saying the heart also relates to sleep patterns, because remember, you can't make melatonin without noradrenaline. And dopamine neurotransmitters. This relates to your older people that get shakes, Parkinson's. To all of this is relationship with the heart and the brain, those three parts of the brain. Once thought to be produced only by the neurons of the central nervous system. No. This is why heart health is so important in menopause and andropause. More recently, it was discovered that the heart also secretes oxytocin. Well, who makes oxytocin? Pituitary. Commonly referred to as the love or bonding hormone. Now, what did we tie that in with? Prostate and uterine issues, ovarian and testes issues, You see how the body magnificently weaves this tapestry of health and communication and works in harmony with all the organs. In addition to its functions in childbirth and lactation, recent evidence indicates that this hormone is also involved in cognition, brain again, aging again, tolerance. What the world needs now is not love, sweet love. Yes, definitely as a global energy. The world needs now is tolerance, sweet tolerance, adaptation, sweet adaptation. So my father used to say to us, be sweet to each other, be kind. Here it is. If the heart is involved, the heart is disturbed, it's over involved with the outer world, it cannot be tolerant, it cannot adapt. Complex sexual and maternal behaviors, loving one another, kindness, doing things for one another, learning social cues. What words should you say? What words should you not say? And establishment of enduring love bonds. Our friendship, right? Our network, that's a love bond. The connection between healers. Concentration of oxytocin in the heart were found to be as high as those in the brain, as high. Not just the brain, as high as those produced by the pituitary. So, and then this cascade of understanding in menopause follows all the way through. Communication at the cellular level, right? Through the thyroid. Anxiety and depression, what did they say was the main thing, the main symptom of that study that they did on women? Anxiety and depression, lethargy. So calcium, Mark has taught a lot about the parathyroid glands lately. If you don't have good thyroid function, I don't care what you're taking for your parathyroid, because the thyroid regulates. Calcium regulation in conjunction with parathyroid glands. You cannot think of one part of the body without assisting the other, without stopping the attack on the thyroid. And this is big in menopausal women. The adrenal glands. And as I said, the main thing in menopause is no energy, no good constitution, no endurance, no inherent strength. Here it is. Because remember that when those ovaries abate, it affects the pituitary, who is called into service. Pick up the slack in lowered estrogen and testosterone production in aging cycles. Menopause, heroine, andropause, hero. That's what the adrenals provide. This is all in one formula, everyone. Simplex F. And of course, the gonads itself. If the body is getting overtrophin, remember what I began with. If it's getting enough of the protomorphogen, instead of the immune system attacking the ovaries and continuing to shut them down, continuing to shut down the production of estrogen, progesterone, it will act as a decoy, so that these antibodies are now attacking the overtrophin, which happens before these even enter the bloodstream. And it prevents the immune system. It nullifies that latent autoimmune effect. Here it is. All related: bone health, electromagnetic radiation, toxicity, on and on. All the things that people struggle with. Now, the next, the herbal product that I highly recommend, without Simplex F and Wild Yam Complex, in my opinion, you can't deal with menopause effectively. So I'm going to go through real quickly what is in Wild Yam Complex. And thank God for Kerry Bone. He put this together beautifully. So what is in Wild Yam Complex? Wild yam, shatavari. Shatavari means the woman with 100 husbands. Now you can use this in Femco too, but it's in Wild Yam Complex. St. John's wort, helping to deal with calming. Sage for sweating, hot flashes. Black cohosh for maintaining estrogen balance, and Korean ginseng also. It's all in one product. And I'm going to let you go through these, but you'll see that low libido, weight gain, vaginal dryness, all these menopausal symptoms can be assisted with shatavari in Wild Yam Complex. Here's the St. John's wort. It's an antiviral. It's a topical antimicrobial. It's an antidepressant. OCD, anxiety, so on and on. Sage, sweating, menopausal hot flashes, night sweats, all in one product, everyone. So with these two products, you're getting a significant foundation to what is needed. All women, in my opinion, should be on these. So again, ovarian dysfunction. Now, does it mean that if you take this formula with black cohosh, your ovaries are going to come back on stream? No. But they won't lose more. That's the point. And of course, Korean ginseng, which has been used for thousands of years. And a lot of men and women, as they age, they get into neuralgia. They get into cold hands and feet. They get into performance and well-being issues, lowered immune function, all in this one product. So I'm going to go through these very quickly. How am I doing for time? Okay, so I'm doing well. Libido. Now, again, what you're going to see is what I just talked to you about. You'll see a pattern in these protocols that I've put in here. So here's libido. Let's look at the top 4 products, which I'm not going to go into again. Wild Yam Complex if you're over 50, Femco if you're under 50. That's my rule of thumb. Simplex F, again, for all. Fortil B12 has long been known as a good aphrodisiac, but let's just stick with what we're developing here today in creating this foundation, those 2 products. Wheat germ oil was the fertility vitamin. It's so good for increasing performance, not just sexually, all performance up to 250%. Dr. Lee did a study when he was alive. This is the product that we've used many times to prevent miscarriage because of its sex hormone precursors and endurance properties, octocosanol especially. Vaginal dryness. We talked about the most important for intimacy, not that, you know, physical intercourse is the be all and end all as people age. Intimacy has a variety of wonderful attributes and parts to it. But if it becomes an issue and this vaginal dryness, look at the #1 product. You could say, and I'm going to go into Orchex here for both men and women, because this relates to neurotransmitters related in and around that tissue. Vaginal dryness is painful intercourse, right? That's the outcome of vaginal dryness, painful intercourse. Wheat germ oil again, Simplex F, and again, Femco, and it should say Femco or Wild Yam Complex here. Oh, it's down here. I see. Okay. Now, you will see as we go along that MediHerb, they recommend Tribulus for women. I do not. I recommend for women Wild Yam Complex and Damiana for sexual and intimate, the best herbs for that. Yes, you can use Tribulus, and we'll show you why. Now, the other thing for vaginal dryness that I've recommended, and I always get great feedback on this aloe cadabra. This is a natural aloe vera with vitamin E. It's a great lubricant, vaginal lubricant for intimacy. So, and you're going to get this in your office. You're going to get coming in and say, man, I got to do something about this. Make sure they get this. It's so inexpensive. And of course, my #1 aphrodisiac for both men and women, but particularly women, is Damiana. It only comes in a liquid now. There might be a little bit in one product. Michael mentioned that on our lecture tour, but I didn't know that. The evidence that Damiana herb has a very long history of use as a natural aphrodisiac and relaxant in Central and South America, dating back to the time of the ancient Aztecs. Geez, you think it's been used for a while? Mayans, Guacura, who lived in modern day Mexico. What does Damiana do? It makes that, and what makes it beneficial? Some people compare Damiana to cannabis due to its relaxing and simultaneously stimulating effects. In fact, although I don't recommend using it in this way, Damiana is smoked and infused in baked recipes, just like cannabis is. Now, you could dry to remove the alcohol, but it would still be in a little liquid, but you could add that into a recipe if you wanted to. It contains a number of active ingredients that can positively impact functions of the endocrine and nervous system. In herbal medicine, Damiana is used to both relax the body and improve energy levels. Herbs are amazing what they do. And some of what they do in nature is what they do in our bodies. And so it's fascinating. How do you improve energy and relax? Well, if you have a lot of energy, you say you're not relaxed, but maybe you get more energy and you are calm within that energy field. At the same time, according to Mountain Rose Herbs Origin, Damiana is the Greek daemon, meaning to tame or subdue. Benefits associated with Damiana at times include, and I'll let you read all of these through. But this is, and the rest of this, it's wonderful. But this is my go-to herb. And anytime that I have a low energy, being on the road or in my life here, I always take this. You don't have to take it every day, only as needed. That's the great thing. Doesn't have to build up in your system. It works instantly within 15, 20 minutes. And of course, I use rhodiola ginseng with that for men. So, and then the last one for menopause is, of course, weight. Now, you know what I've taught you and said over the years. When a woman enters menopause, this is her crone, the cycle of her life. This is her wise woman cycle. She's not going to have a body of a 25, to 45-year-old. She's not. The body naturally begins to conserve fat cells. Women have bigger fat cells than men. I don't know if you knew that. To hold more hormone, i.e. estrogen, in those cells for release to protect bone health, to give you energy, skin, hair. Now, one of the ways I can tell you whether a woman has enough estrogen is their hair starts to fall out. Now you can look at that protocol up in my book, but that's a sign. It's a sign of loss of communication between the ovaries, pituitary, and the liver, primarily. So there's other factors too, protein factors, but in menopause, women should put on, in my opinion, 10 to even 20 pounds. It's fine. Now, anything getting up past 20 or toward 20, the individual needs to look at that and do something with that. You got to cut back because you're doing too much. The body is slowing the metabolic rate down to conserve. The body wants you to live healthy and wonderfully for 100 years, at least to 90. So again, now it's not in here, but pituitrophin in the simplex F. So you'll see a theme here with obesity. But the main thing I wanted to read is this, which is, I believe, what I put here. Well, I'll read this one. The central regulator of tissue permeability is the posterior pituitary gland. So you can't use E-manganese. That's anterior pituitary. You have to use pituitrophin. A daily dosage of 1/100th grain will reduce osmotic assimilation through the intestinal wall of the nutrients and cause a loss of appetite within a few days. To readily mobilize more of the reserve fat, lecithin dosage, let me see, did Joseph put lecithin in here? Oh, there it is, soybean lecithin or choline. There it is. Okay, Joseph's right on today. Cause a loss of appetite within a few to readily mobilize more of the reserve fat, lecithin dosage. Remember, 60% of the fat in your liver is lecithin. 30% of the fat in your brain is lecithin. May be desirable, and small doses of bile salts is cholesterol in here. #1 product. Yeah. #1 product, purified bile salts. The pituitary deficient patient is the type that cannot reduce in spite of food reduction. Beloved royalty. There it is, everyone. So the key to this whole syndrome of weight gain is the posterior pituitary action. Most overweight people have an obviously disordered endocrine balance. Why? Because their immune system is now attacking those endocrine glands. But too much attention in the past has been directed to the thyroid. Yes, we weren't wrong, but we didn't have the whole picture that he now has filled in. Sometimes the thyroid is at fault, but not very often. The pituitary deficient patient is the type that can not reduce in spite of food restrictions. There it is again. So that is my overview of menopause. Now, I didn't put much in about diet and exercise in here, which I should have added. But remember that the paleo diet is my go-to diet, and exercise is 30 to 60 minutes a day. So there is no question that that needs to be added into the picture. And finally, with both men and women, intermittent fasting. Don't eat 17 hours a day. If you feel like you have a blood sugar issue in the morning, then do the Joseph shake. Syrofood, inositol, gastrofiber, and whey pro. That's all. No fruit, nothing else. Put those, a tablespoon of each of those powders in water and sip on them until you get through to your 17 hours. If you eat at 5, you can eat after 10 o'clock the next day. You just don't eat breakfast anymore. So these were patterns that were set up back when people were hunter-gatherers, back where they were farmers. Of course, you had to eat before if you're going to go out and strain yourself all day. So andropause, here it is. And I'll go back to this, but I want to do the same thing from that study that I gave you in the first part of the hour. But men have different issues than women. Remember that I gave you that article on those differences. Men have prostate issues. They have libido issues. They have erectile dysfunction issues. And their mood swings, low energy, anxiety, depression. Men have hot flashes too. I'm surprised that this is the number 1 in here. Oh, the number 1 is erectile dysfunction. Yeah. Loss of body mass. Yeah. So that was based on this study that they did on men. A study of men with andropause in the most common symptom was low libido, low sex drive. So here again, the relationship between the gonads, the testes, orchic, and the pituitary, that same connection. If you're in sympathetic dominance, your body does not function well. It doesn't. You can't get blood into the penis if you're in sympathetic dominance. You can't. It won't do it. It's how the body was designed. It was designed to run, to get away from. It's not. In order for the male body to function right, it must be in rest and digest. And of course, the backup to the testes, just like in the woman's body, is the adrenals. And all of this where they start to put on fat, right? Where was that? Yeah, body, loss of muscle, loss too much fat, and man gets the visceral fat. They get that extra endocrine gland. That all ties in with thyroid. So this, again, these formulas are so magnificent for men, really. Now, as I say to you, I use Damiana for women for vitality, relaxation, sex drive. I use Tribulus for men. Other teachers may disagree, but you're getting the gospel of Joseph today. So Tribulus combines well with Damiana. I didn't write this. It's just how I have found what I've found to be true. There it is. You can use both. Korean ginseng. It's in the wild yam complex. Saw palmetto for the male prostate. Withania in male sexual inadequacy and infertility, low libido in women, black cohosh or wild yam in menopause, and withania, eleutherococcus or ginseng for a tonic. I've already reviewed that with you. But Tribulus combines well with these other products that we've already discussed. And hormonal and sexual activity. What is the main complaint with men? They can't function like they used to when they were younger. So here he goes into this Tribulus, which is back. You couldn't get it for many months, but it's back in stock now. Increased plasma testosterone concentrations, increased testosterone levels, improved semen production. So normalized sexual activity. So you can read this through. And as I say, if you go back to the protocol itself, apologize. you will see simplex M and tribulus. Orchex is the third one, which I'll go into, because both men and women need Orchex. Now, I put in the woman's protocol Minchex, half of Minchex is Orchex, but you could use straight Orchex with women. But you must, for men with these issues, you must have simplex M and tribulus. I don't see, I have never known anything else to work as well as that combination. So why do I say Orchex? Because Orchex has an enzyme which regulates all of these issues with depression, lethargy, mental fogginess, is because in the nerve synapses, there is an overabundance of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are out of control. They are produced in the gut, so it could be a gut issue. Very well. But neurotransmitters, what do they relate to? Everything. How you feel neurologically, how you sleep, all of that relates to these neurotransmitters. If you get too little or you get mainly too many, because what happens is, which is very interesting, the body will keep producing them if the nervous system has not come back online. Why doesn't the nervous system come back online? B vitamins. Issues with the pituitary, right? The pituitary regulates autonomic function. If it's not online, the body is compensating again. It's putting too much of these chemicals in the nerve synapses. So Orchex is the one. The most effective physiological tranquilizer standard process makes. It's a source of the enzyme hyaluronidase, also known as the spreading factor. It helps normalize neurotransmission activity in the gut and the brain, regulating these powerful chemicals in nerve synapses. And, you know, you'll find that people that have these anxiety oftentimes have problems with their vagus nerve. There's your organically bound minerals. They have problems with their gut. A lot of men get loose bowels, and not as much. Women tend to get constipated in menopause, but men tend to get loose bowels. This will help regulate it. The male gonad hormone, known as inhibin, it is water soluble and it hasn't had the publicity that testosterone has. Oh, now you're tying in Orchex with the male testes, the production of the hormones in there, but it does stimulate the production of an enzyme in the body known as hyaluronidase. Hyaluronidase controls permeability. So what does that mean? It prevents the body from overdoing anything in your joints, your shoulders, your hips, your knees. That's over permeability of sebaceous, of the fluids in your joints. If there's a lack of this particular factor, the patient will develop what is termed to be malignant hypertension. Is this big in andropause? It's huge in men, huge. Orchex. She gradually gets worse, and there is no known remedy. Your andropause men are on 3 drugs, 2 to 3 drugs, not just one, for high blood pressure. I don't know what the percentage is. It's high. We have had good results with hypertension with this gonad factor. A trade name is Orchex. This product has been very successful in these cases. And of course, the prostate, remember, is if you're going to work with this, the best combination, along with, remember, the prostate will not swell if the testicle, if the gonadal function in the male is normal. It won't. And that truth was way back in the 1920s. They knew that. If the man is functioning well and producing enough testosterone, that prostate should not swell to the extent that it gets cancerous, that it no longer functions. That is two things: a lack of nutrition and a lack of use. A man must ejaculate 1 to 2 times a week. If you don't use it, you lose it. The body will inherently close in. And John, one of the first things of many that John taught me is the prostate hardens and swells from the inside out, not the outside in, because of lack of use. So that's why intimacy all ties in with this. You can see how it does. Loving one another. And obviously that changes as we get older, but it still should be present. Taking care of one another should still be present. And so the key factors with prostatic hyperplasia is prostate issues in men are going, now there's several products, but it's going to be vitamin F, because that stops fibrotic cells from forming. You can use the calcium with it. That drives the calcium into the prostate. The F drives the calcium, but you have to have the calcium into the prostate to soften it. And then of all the other products, yes, zinc helps. Prostaco is great. Prostex is also good, but Herbal Vital, everyone, this is the one that I've been going to now. The first herb in Herbal Vital is Japanese knotweed. And it has been used for thousands of years, taught to me by my great friend, Larry Welch, an herbalist in Boulder, Colorado. And I'll tell you, if you get on this at 2 twice a day, you could even use more. It softens and decreases the swelling in the prostate. Don't forget the vitamin. You can use herbs, but you have to use the vitamins, because that's what, this is the malnutrition. This, the herbal substances that you use, is providing the balancing of function, but you still have to feed that gland. What is the vitamin? Vitamin F. What is the mineral? Zinc. What is the protein? And that is prostate PMG, which is in Prostaco. The other, you'll see, again, there's the prostate PMG, by the way. I guess I had to prioritize somehow. And again, at B6, I'm going to review this at the very end. You'll see why this is in both for men and women. Vitamin B6. You're going to be surprised if you hang in there long enough. So, and we're doing great. So again, this infertility in men, here it is, tribulus, simplex M. The other things you can use, definitely, but basically it's the same thing. Now, erectile dysfunction in men, it can be hormonal. You've covered that with tribulus and simplex M. You can use the Orchex and the wheat germ oil. Now, some of you are thinking, well, when do I use Orchex? If a man has erectile dysfunction and high blood pressure, that is your flag. That's your red flag to make sure that you have Orchex at 6 a day at least in his program. Now, with men, they can have damage down there. And that usually is the penis is very vascular. And if it loses its vascular tone, and it even can be kidney issues. So all of those are included in there. Or it can be circulation. How do you know which one? Run a heart sound graph. If a man with erectile dysfunction, send me the graph. I'll help you teach you how to know whether it's vascular or neurological, circulatory, or both. or both, or hormonal, by the way. Now, this is a key, really just even these first three before intimacy. Say intimacy primarily happens in the evening. That's how I built this part of the protocol, is just to use, you don't have to use all of this, mainly rhodiola, tribulus, bone complex. The first herb in bone complex is horny goatweed, so that you can look that up. Now, Mediherb doesn't like me teaching it that way, but that's the herb. That's the herb. Now, this is for men primarily. This is not for women before intimacy. So to conclude here, as I said earlier on, when I put a product in, I don't just throw it in because somebody told me about it. It's because I've used it. I call vitamin B6 the woman's vitamin, but it's also the men's vitamin. Why? Well, this was out of Staying Healthy with Nutrition, Dr. Haas, the MD. You should all get this book. Yes, they're reductionists. Yes, they're talking about synthetic. Now, Standard Process, of course, beautifully blends synthetic, ample amounts of what they have found with synthetic and the natural. So, and here it is. What does it do? Oh, it helps with tryptophan. Yes, pineal. It helps store energy in the liver and muscles. ED and other sexual performance issues. It helps antibody and red cell production, the function of DNA and RNA, and on, sodium, potassium. All, if you looked at this, other than the symptoms I put in about young mothers and babies, this all relates mostly to andropause and menopause. So what am I saying? I'm saying that if you get on these basic protocols, say you're using the simplex F or M, you're using the wild yam complex or tribulus or Damiana, and you're not seeing, it's not coming together well. You got to check if they're exercising. You got to check if they're sleeping. You got to check their diet. But they may be missing. Now you could say, well, Cataplex B core, that's all you need. It may not be enough of the B6 factor. When you read his chapter, I wanted to put the whole chapter in here, but when you read his chapter on B6, it's going to blow your mind how much it does in relationship to the people, mainly those from 60 to 90 years of age. You'll be impressed. Now, when I was putting this program together for you, when I saw that I have B6 in andropause and menopause, I thought, why did I put that in there? And I returned to Dr. Haas, who I love. I love this book. And I read from it weekly, for sure, what they were thinking. These are all based on studies, by the way. These aren't just based on findings. These are based on actual studies, every single one of these bullets. And I didn't even put them all in. I couldn't. There was not enough room on the slide. So, as always, it's been my pleasure, my joy to be with you and to share this information with you and to help us, to help you help others, to bless others. And especially in that time, we are reaching a time by 2025, 1/4 of the people in the United States will be in andropause or menopause. They'll be retired. They'll be older. 25% in 4 years. So understanding these things, understanding the basics, how to create a foundation, and the impact that these herbs and protomorphogens and nutrients provide is why we are together on these calls. And so, as I say, my pleasure. I'm going to stop recording and then I'll take some questions until another 30 minutes.
I got a question.
Are
Hi.
you sure you want to stop recording?